Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our next edition of At Home with Holland Home webinar. I'm Michael Loafman from Holland Home, and I am joined by two friends today, Jeannie Jones and Michael Courtwright. Jeannie Jones with Pathway and Michael Courtwright with Greenridge. Today we're going to be talking about downsizing and real estate trends. This has been the highest number of registrants we've ever had, so I know it's a topic everybody's interested in. So we're really glad that both of these fine people could join us today and talk. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in one of these webinars, just let us know. We're very open to ideas. If there's something that you think you'd be more interested in, then let us know. We'd be happy to consider that. This webinar, along with all the past webinars, are on our website at hollandhome.org/resources. There you'll find the 17 previous webinars done. And our next webinar in June, I'm just going to give a plug for that, June 28th, we're going to talk about the renovation process here at Holland Home, to talk about how that works when people are moving in, with what they can select. We're going to talk to our two turnover coordinators, designers. They're going to talk about the renovation process. They're going to share some trends in design that they're seeing with residents. So I think that'll be kind of fun. And they're even going to share with us some before and after pictures. So we're going to kind of do a at home with Holland Home HGTV style. So we're pretty excited about it for next month as well. You see my face, but we're joined by the entire sales team. So Cindy, Victoria, Patty are on the webinar today, and we're all here to just help you through the process. So if you have questions, we're going to talk to Jeannie first, then we're going to talk to Michael, and then at the end we'll have time for question and answer. If you could type those questions into the Q&A box, that would be great. Not the chat box, but the Q&A box. And then I'll moderate that at the end, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. So without further ado, we're going to speak first with Jeannie Jones from Pathway Senior Movers. We have a relationship with Pathway, and it's worked great as they help seniors. So Jeannie, thanks for joining today. Tell us a little bit, why do you think, I mean, this is a struggle we face here at Holland Home and working with families. Downsizing seems to be really hard. Why is that?
Well, good morning, and thank you for asking me to be part of this panel. Downsizing is very overwhelming. Most of our clients have been in their homes. The average is 40 years. So the downsizing process, you took a long time to gather all these things. So you have to understand it's not going to happen overnight. So we understand it's overwhelming, and it can get in the way of moving to Holland Home, and which is what we don't want to have happen. So, it's very clear by the amount of response we have to this webinar that people are ready and they want to get prepared. And it is the absolute perfect time because the weather is nice. We can open some windows, we can get organized and not overwhelm the whole house. So, right now you've started the process because you're on this webinar. You've taken the first step.
Yeah.
So it is overwhelming. We did about 300 senior moves last year between our two locations, and we downsized about 250 of those clients. And I would say almost every one of them had the same feeling you have right now. Where do I start? What do we have to do next? So we do have a plan for you. And if Michael, if you don't mind me continuing, or do you want to ask other questions, but I'll just continue.
Continue, but I do have another question. So
okay.
Go ahead.
We do start with a process. We just don't come in and turn your house upside down. We work together with you on the downsizing process. So we come in with a plan that you and I develop together. You, the resident, you, the homeowner.
Yeah. What are some common mistakes people make when they're starting this process, when they're starting to downsize? What are some mistakes people do that you've seen?
The biggest mistake is not doing anything. The second biggest mistake is attacking more than one room at a time. It's very important that you stay organized. So we do one room, one dresser, one closet until it's 100% complete before we move on to the next. If you take something out, it goes out. It doesn't come back in. Using a system, we use a dot matrix system to help you stay organized, and it works 100% of the time. So by starting and getting overwhelmed is the biggest mistake.
Yeah, and I think I've heard you say, I think when we've talked prior, that starting in an area where you don't normally go, you're not going to start with the kitchen. You're going to
Correct.
start with maybe the attic or the basement where you've not been or touched things.
Correct.
Yeah.
We never start in kitchen, living room, master bedroom. Those are rooms that you use every day, because things do come out and may not go back right away. So we start in what we refer to as dormant rooms. Typically, our clients are overwhelmed by the lower levels, the basements, because that's the catch-all. It's very common. You can put that downstairs and close the door and not think about it. But that is one of the rooms that slow us down. So we start there. So your whole house is not turned upside down.
Yeah, that's great. What are 2 or 3 suggestions you have? I mean, we've talked a little bit about that, but what are 2 or 3 suggestions you have for people that are watching as they start the process? Maybe assuming that they've started the process. I mean, that would be our first suggestion, is starting the process. But what are a couple other things that you recommend people do?
Well, we have a plan for you, and to try to follow the plan, after the webinar, we will have our email or phone number up, and we will send you one of our kits that gets you started. And it's just very basic. But having a plan, having a start point and an end point is very critical. If you have an idea, I want to move into Holland Home in a year, then I need to have all your downsizing done in 6 months. So we work on a timeline. So when Michael's ready to sell your home, you're ready. It's not the stress. It's not a fire drill. So the longer we have, the little less stress. But with that being said, if you're going to move in 2 weeks, we still have a plan, just a little faster.
Yeah, and I remember you saying before that suggesting that people don't start with the box of sentimental pictures or
Correct.
something like that. Like
Correct.
start with because that will really slow you down.
Yeah. And you have to remember, in the downsizing process, you're the boss. The homeowner is the boss. If you're not ready to let go of something, it's okay. There's no right or wrong. The downsizing process is tailored to you specifically. So if you don't want to get to the 300 books, or if you're not 100% sure where you want that china to go, it's okay. Let's attack the 10 vases. Let's attack, the clothes that have been in the lower level for 3 or 4 years. So we come up with a plan, but everybody has to remember, nobody's going to make the decisions for you. We do it together as a team. That's
great. And I've heard you say too, there is a momentum that starts, right? Once somebody gets started, it does it get a little easier once you kind of, there seems to be like momentum of like, oh, this is freeing to clear my space and really have only the things I love in this space.
Absolutely. And the things that you love are things that we make sure that we stay. That's very important, that those don't go anywhere. And we plan out the future for them. But we want to make sure that we have a plan to things go where they're supposed to go. If you want things to go to family, we get family involved in the process. If you're not sure, then we think about it. So we have a designated space for everything. But one thing that's nice is that when you have made the decision that you don't want it, it leaves immediately. It doesn't stay there. And when all of a sudden you walk into the room and you say, wow, I've done it, that's what you are looking for. Michael is like, oh, I've gotten this room done. I can accomplish this task.
Yeah. And one other question before we move on to Michael. Pathway has kind of a unique setup for their clients where you have this store, consignment store in Marm. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So yes, thank you. One of the big things is when people are downsizing, they want to know what's happening to their items. Very important, very sensitive concern. So we have opened up a 30,000 square foot consignment store that is only for our residents that we're moving or downsizing with. So we don't take any consignment from the outside. It's only from the people we're helping transition or downsize. So you know your things are going to be used and loved. We get young families that come in and look at your fabulous Baker furniture and they just are in awe because they could never afford to do it. So very, very little gets thrown out. We do use very specific donation places. We do sell your things and we'll help you get them to family. So very little gets disposed of.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jeannie. And I know I'm sure there'll be questions for you at the end here. But Michael Courtwright from Green Ridge, our friends at Green Ridge. Michael, you know, most residents moving into Holland home will sell their home. So selling that house, which is a lot of times their main asset, is a big deal. So can you talk about the current state of the real estate market in West Michigan? Because everybody's worried, is my house going to sell? You know, so can you talk a little bit about the current state of West Michigan real estate market?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very dynamic market right now, and I think some of the ways to explain what's happening in our market might be to have some visual representation and some data and some charts. So I'm going to pull up my screen here. I'm going to share that with everyone, and I want to just touch on a couple of charts here, and this will help explain what is happening.
We're going to geek out is what I'm hearing, right?
Yes, and I love this. So I just love data. I love graphs. So what we're going to look at first is our average sale price in the greater Grand Rapids area. And so what we're looking at right now is kind of a broader West Michigan look at the real estate market. So this will be the data shown encompasses Kent County, Berry County, Ottawa County, Ionia County, so that the greater Grand Rapids market. The first chart here is average sale prices, and this is going back 10 years time. So if we look at the left margin of the screen, our average sale price in January of 2013 was $135,000. You can see that trend going upwards. And today, our average sale price in the month of April was $353,000. So prices have continued to appreciate here in West Michigan. And what I attribute that to is it's just people want to be in West Michigan. There's such a diverse economy with a number of different industries that create a very stable work environment. There's a big labor pool, a lot of jobs available. And a lot of people are relocating to the area, so that's great. One of the things that plays into the rise in the average sale price is basic supply and demand. And so what we've seen historically, and especially within the past few years, is the number of homes for sale has been a little light, but there's been high buyer demand. And so when we see that high buyer demand, that's going to continue to drive those prices upwards. There is a federal agency, the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They rank the top 100 metro areas throughout the country in terms of annual home price appreciation. Grand Rapids ranks number 54. You can see right in the middle of the screen here in the top 100 nationwide. And we've had appreciation year over year of 8.3%. And that's great. And even in the last quarter, our prices have risen about 0.3%, which is good because many metro areas have had a small decline in prices. And again, I think that's attributed to just the nature of West Michigan. It's a desirable place to be. It is very affordable, even though you might be looking at these average sale prices and saying, wow, that's really gone up. But if we compare West Michigan to other areas of the country, it's a very affordable place to be, which is what's driving people to want to be here.
And I think that speaks to, I mean, we were just talking this morning before we started the webinar that Ottawa County, Kent County are two of the fastest growing counties in Michigan. So this is where people are moving to. And I think we have to make sure we're always thinking about, it's about West Michigan market. So we can't really pay attention to, if we see the evening news and the national trends, it's very much a local, the market is very much a like a small part. It's always about the local economy versus the national economy.
You are absolutely right. It is very localized. And so that's why it's important to have a conversation with a local real estate expert to help educate you on what's happening in the local market here.
So we hear a lot about interest rates going up. The Fed started to change that to kind of curtail inflation. And so interest rates are a big impact, of course, generally on real estate. Can you talk about how the interest rates have impacted the market here in West Michigan? And yeah,
absolutely. So, and it's a great question because it has had an impact. The interesting thing, so interest rates right now, currently we're right around 6%. And that depends on type of mortgage or type of loan you're getting and things like that, but right around 6%. The 30-year historical average for interest rates range between 6 and 8%. So that's the 30-year average. Over the course of the past, 5, 6, 7 years, interest rates have been 3, 4%, and people have just gotten so used to that. But that wasn't normal. Now we're back into this normal interest rate. I'm sure a lot of you remember interest rates being 10, 12, 15%. So when you think of 6%, you're like, wow, that's a great rate. And it still is a really good rate. However, people have been used to those artificially low rates. So when rates jumped up, especially last summer, and they touched 6%, 6.5 to 7%, it caused a slowdown in the market. There was a reduction of buyer demand, or buyers kind of got out of the market. Sometimes because the interest rates priced them out of the market. Other times they just needed to reassess. Maybe if they were looking at a certain price point, they couldn't afford that anymore. And so they had to start looking at a lower price point and find out what was really important to them in that house. So as those rates had fluctuated over the past 6, 7, 8 months, we've seen rates stabilize. So rates have really stabilized around that 6% range. Buyers are now, they're used to it now. And so we've seen buyers, especially this spring, come back into the market. And this is there's a lot of buyers in the market. We're hearing more and more stories of multiple offers on a home, and homes selling for at and above what the homes are listed at. So it was a short-term blip is what the effect of the interest rates have had. And I think people have figured it out and gotten used to it now.
And I think we talked on Monday when we were doing a little bit of a practice session about kind of the inventory on hand, that it's very low, and how quickly things are still selling. Can you talk about that just briefly?
Yeah, so I'm going to change my graph here. One of the ways that we judge the market is what's called this months of supply or months of inventory. So what this means is that if we continue at the number of homes we have available for sale at our current sales per month, how many months is it going to take us to sell off our inventory? So this number is expressed in number of months. Now, the way that we judge this is a month, when we have months of inventory at 5 months or below, we consider that a seller's market. The lower the number, the more of a seller's market that is. So when we're in a seller's market for an extended period of time, that's when we have those home prices appreciate. And that's what we've seen. Anywhere from about 5 to 6 months of inventory, this is a healthy, balanced, or neutral market, as we call it. In a healthy or balanced or neutral market, we see home prices still appreciate, but at a slower rate, usually the lower single digits of appreciation per year, which is not a bad place to be. Over 6 months of inventory is considered a buyer's market. That's when, if we're in a buyer's market for an extended period, that's when those prices are trending downwards. That's when we see that depreciation. So the graph that I have up here, this is going back 10 years time, and this is looking at our months of inventory. So even going back 10 years to January of 13, we had 4.5 months of inventory. So that's put us in a strong seller's market for 10 years. And that's when we've seen the average sale prices increase as it has. You had talked about how quickly homes have been selling. I'll show you average days on market here. So our average days on market, we're just over 24 days. We're at 24 days on the market in the month of April. And you can see that's fluctuated based on time of year and things like that. So again, going back 10 years time, the average days on market was 77 days, which is still, that's not a long time for a home to be on the market. And now 24 days, that's not very long at all. There are some homes that sell quicker than that, and some that might take a little longer than that to sell.
Oh, to me, that's fascinating. I'm kind of a data wonk, so I love that. The graph is great, and it helps to have a visual. So Michael, talk a little bit about some common mistakes people make when they're going to go to sell their home. I look at this and like, man, I can do whatever I want. The market's great, but that's probably not the right attitude. What are some common mistakes people are doing?
Yeah, good question. So yes, when you do see that graph, you see, wow, prices are going up. There's a lot of buyers in the marketplace. It is a seller's market, and it is. Buyers still, buyers are very educated. So one of the mistakes that people make is overpricing their home. Buyers, for the most part, aren't willing to pay more than what a home is worth. So it's important to, when you're meeting with your real estate professional, to look at the specific neighborhood comparable sales and price your home accordingly to what the market is bearing for similar homes. If you're priced above the neighborhood comparable sales, that's when you see those homes will sit on the market a little bit longer, and you might have to make an adjustment to find out where buyers are willing to pay for that house.
Yeah, that's great. Any final insights on the real estate market or trends or outlook?
Yeah, so we expect these trends to continue in especially West Michigan here. So we're expecting a very robust real estate market. The market right now, we do need more listing inventory or available homes for sale. So as a seller, you're in a great position right now to really take advantage of the equity that you've gained in the house. And we see that continuing for the foreseeable future. There's an economist that comes into West Michigan every year, and he talks about the real estate market in Grand Rapids. And he said, you know, and he's been doing this for a number of years. I think 5 years we've had him in here now, and he's giving his predictions on the local market. And he's referred to the 2020s as the roaring 20s of the 1920s. So there might be some ups and downs, some blips in there, but overall, he's expecting a great decade of real estate growth.
Yeah, I was at that same presentation.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
it was.
Well, that's great. So thank you both. I know I see some questions are popping in. So we'll get to those. I do want to say that to help with this process, Holland Home, Pathway, and Greenridge are all offering some things to help. So Holland Home continues to offer for your moving and downsizing, we offer up to $1,500 towards your move or towards a personal organizer like Pathway that helps offset some of those costs. Your kids like that as much as anybody does. Pathway is offering 2 hours of complimentary services. If you're part of the Pathway, using Pathway for your move, you have access to that consignment store. And, Jeannie talked about the kit that's going to be available to you for attending today if you want to request that. And then Greenridge is offering, if you work through Greenridge, through their relocation, and we have a sheet about all of that in our packet, sales packet. They offer an additional $1,000 rebate to help you. It's done after the closing to help offset move or the downsizing services, et cetera. So all three of us are offering something to help with the process. So I think that's a recognition of like we're here to help. And I would say 20 years ago, were services like Pathway around, Jeannie, 20 years ago?
Well, it has been about 20 years,
Okay.
but it has grown so much just because of how long people have stayed in their homes.
Yeah, and we're dealing with a generation of collectors, right? I mean, that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we do have a couple questions so far, and if you have more, please type them in the Q&A box. But this first one is from Ellen, and I think Ellen answers her own question, but I'm going to ask it because I think it's a great question. If my move date is 2 to 3 years out, is now, all caps, now still a good time to begin the downsizing process? It feels like it is.
It absolutely is. We work with a lot of clients that are 2 years out. We may come out once every 3 or 4 months, and we'll give you homework to do while we're gone. But yes, it's not too soon. Now is the absolute time to start.
Yeah. And it also puts you in position where if, for example, Holland Home gets to your name quicker than maybe we thought, and Cindy or Victoria or Patty or myself are calling you and saying, hey, we have this place that we think is going to be perfect, you're in a position to accept that as well.
Yes.
So this next question is from Larry, and this is probably for you, Michael. For those who need to borrow to pay Holland Home before selling their house, do you recommend a bridge loan or home equity line of credit? I think we see this more, Michael, where we're doing new construction and their place isn't ready, but they need to make some payments to us. So does Greenridge or have a position on that about a bridge loan or home equity?
Yeah, so what I would say to answer that question, it probably depends on each person's individual circumstances. Mm-hmm. And so I think the best thing to do would be to talk to your local lender, your local bank or credit union, explain your situation and ask for the loan officer or the bank representative, what would be the best for your personal situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Holly asks, at one point we were told Holland Home would take over the sale of our home. Is that still something that happens? So that's a question I can answer. We used to, we technically still have a home buyout program that's done through Greenridge. To be honest, we've not used it in nearly, I've been here 12 years. I think it's been almost 9 since someone's used it. It is really designed, if you think when the market was slower, it's limited to homes that are 250,000 or less. And there was that option to do that. You had to decide that when you signed your reservation agreement up front. But given the trends that you see on that chart where things are only on the market about a month, no one really has had to use something like that. Now, when you saw Michael's chart, and on the left-hand side of that, when things were on the market maybe 5 months or so, well, then that became more of an issue, right? So that was what it was designed for. So technically we still have it, but no one's used it in the last 9 years. So anyway, I think that so Holly also asked, what's the average cost for using Pathway services? That may be a hard question.
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
When we come out, we specifically design this process for each individual future resident. So there's no two moves alike. There's no two downsizes alike, but we give you you give us a budget, but we give you an estimate. If we do this, you do that, this is what you should expect. Nobody likes surprises, but it is our pleasure to come out and give you a free plan and an estimate and a place to get started and let you know how much it's going to cost you.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think this one's for you too. For movers, I have a piece of furniture that will need to be removed through a window. Should that be arranged ahead?
Not necessarily. And that's not unusual. Sometimes furniture is built inside the home. Sometimes things have changed. So no, again, we've done some pretty amazing things getting furniture in or out.
Yeah.
We just need to know ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all about planning, right?
Yes.
Kurt and Connie ask, is there a computer way to see how furniture will fit in your new home?
Absolutely. We do space planning with you. We start with what is your favorite thing and we kind of build around it. It's a lot of fun. We do it together. But Holland Home will give us a grid of your floor plan. We do the measuring and it's almost like paper dolls. We just kind of place things and see how they look. And just be rest assured, if it doesn't look the way you want, we don't leave. We just don't drop it and go. We make sure you're happy with it, but we do plan ahead.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to move it on the computer than once it's in the room. So
you betcha.
Yeah. That was the last question I see in here. So we'll just anyone else have a question? If not, we're gonna wrap things up here. I'm gonna make another plug for the things that both Holland Home, Pathway, and Greenridge are offering: the moving allowance, the complimentary services, the moving kit, the $1,000 from Greenridge, the $1,500 from Holland Home. If you have questions about any of this, talk to your person you're working with here internally. I'd be happy to do that. I'm also going to put a plug in for our next webinar, June 28th, about the renovation process and design trends. So I don't see any other questions. I'm going to thank everybody for joining us. And until next time, this has been At Home with Holland Home. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you,
Enjoy
everyone.
your sunshine.